it is such a pain to do any of that when you don't live in the US. It's sad. I'm sorry, but it is so not even thought of some of the things that you have to go through when you move somewhere that I could have never thought of. So this is a step above that is accepted internationally. Hello, travel lovers, and welcome to A Wanderlust for Life, the channel that shows you European gems through food and memorable experiences, but also sometimes I talk about expat life because I live here in Amsterdam and I am from the United States. And I know that a lot of you who are thinking of moving over here have a lot of questions. In this video, I'm going to share 15 things that you should do before you move to the Netherlands. So let's dive right in, shall we? First, I want to tell you that Sean and I were allowed to move here because he has an Italian passport as well as his American. So we moved without much thought of anything because he could already live here and then he could sponsor me. We also did this without a job already, and if you are coming here with a job, they might already do some of these things for you. So you can just go ahead and tick it off the list. We'll start off with some practical things and then I'll leave you with some questions to think about at the end that will make everything a little easier. Number 1, try to learn Dutch before you come. You don't have to be fluent. The Dutch know English very well, but knowing some words and some phrases will help you get by, but also just help you feel more comfortable when you move. So these things might be dates, numbers, what I call restaurant Dutch. So you can ask for the menu, ask to pay, things like that. You can read a menu without asking for the English menu, but also just knowing numbers and things like mevrouw or meneer, which is like ma'am or sir, because people might call out to you or you might need to call out to somebody else. I found those kind of helpful. I use Rosetta Stone. I've also used Duolingo. There are plenty of options out there for you. Just check them out and see what works best for your situation. But I would just get started with the sounds and learning some of the basics. And that's plenty for now. I highly suggest practicing learning temperatures in Celsius and also the metric system because we use the metric system here. And in Celsius, it's easiest if you start learning about what feels a certain temperature. So 0 Celsius is 32 degrees Fahrenheit, and you know that that's freezing. And then 30 degrees Celsius is, okay, I can't translate it super well in my head, but it's pretty darn warm. And just knowing those things will help you kind of understand the weather and when people are talking about certain things. And the metric system, the best way that I have found for this is to get a measuring tape that has both inches and centimeters on it. And then you can kind of, when you're doing things in your house, when you're measuring things, you can kind of see both of them and think about it that way. Watch all the YouTube videos. I'm not just talking about my own, but I do have a Netherlands playlist, which I will link in the description for you below. And I really suggest watching Rick Steves, Samantha Brown, any travel vloggers that you watch. Just watch all of their Netherlands content because it'll give you kind of a feel for the place. Now, obviously, those of us who live here will give you a better, I guess, more in-depth look and isn't just gonna be, ooh, Amsterdam, red light district. Because if you've been watching this channel for a while, you know that Amsterdam is way more than tourists usually think it is. And it's actually way better to live here than it is to visit because once you get in there, there's just so much to do and see and learn, and the community is absolutely amazing. But the Samantha Brown, Rick Steves, Anthony Bourdain, Andrew Zimmern, all the travel shows, watch them and that'll give you an idea. Learn the provinces. So the Netherlands is made up of 12 provinces, 2 of which are North Holland and South Holland. So the Netherlands as a whole is not Holland, although in many languages it is translated as that. So there's a lot of mix-up that happens, but as an American who speaks English, you should know that the Netherlands is the country as a whole, and then Holland is actually 2 provinces. North Holland has Amsterdam in it. South Holland has The Hague in it, also Rotterdam, which are 2 other major cities. So I would learn a little bit about the geography and what is what. So for instance, Amsterdam is the capital of the Netherlands. However, all of the gubernatorial, is that the right word? All the government stuff happens in The Hague. So it's just important to know all of those things. And I will leave a link to a very interesting video about the difference between the Netherlands as a country and the Netherlands as a kingdom. It kind of blows your mind. If you're like me, the first half you'll be like so proud of yourself, like, I know that. And then the second half will just kind of leave you with your jaw dropped because you had no idea it was that complicated. And I think if you're gonna move here, you should learn a little bit about the country and the geography. If you don't already know how to ride a bike, I highly encourage you to get comfortable before you move here. Obviously you can learn it when you're here, but there's just something so nice about just moving here and hopping on a bike and going about your way. I will say that if you move to Amsterdam, that cycling in the center of the city is very different than cycling in the rest of the city and cycling throughout the rest of the country itself, because Amsterdam is so densely populated and there's so many tourists, and in the center of the city there aren't as many specific bike lanes, so you're riding along with traffic, which can be very intimidating. So if you know how to ride a bike, that just helps the integration a little bit better because you'll have confidence on a bike. I don't know how many times I've seen tourists who look so uncomfortable on a bike and yet they're trying to cycle with traffic, and it's terrifying for me. It must be for them. If you plan on living in Amsterdam, I highly suggest getting rid of any high heels. I've talked about this in the video of what I hate about Amsterdam. If you haven't watched it, kind of take it with a grain of salt, because the whole point of the video was that there isn't much to hate about Amsterdam, but that went over a lot of people's heads. And if you like your high heels, may I suggest you investing in wedges or chunky heels, things like that, or just know that you'll probably want to wear different shoes going someplace and then switching them. I've definitely sat along a canal and switched into my heels for a fancier event, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. But we have cobblestones all over the center of the city, and that is where a lot of like cultural events and stuff like that happen, or when you might want to go out to a club or something like that. So just be mindful. I have so many cute shoes that I just don't wear anymore. It's sad. Get your paperwork together. Okay, so this is a big one for me because I think it's absolutely ridiculous when people get here and they just don't know what they need. The IND website, it's IND.nl, it's the immigration website, has everything that you need to know in literally plain English. So go there, figure out everything you need, put it all together, and that usually includes an apostille. What an apostille is, you may be familiar with the term notary. So when you go and somebody basically proves that you are who you are when you sign a document. So this is a step above that that is accepted internationally. What it is that it certifies the document itself, saying this is a valid document from this governing body. So like in Virginia, if I got my birth certificate, I had to get an apostille from Richmond, the capital of Virginia, saying that this is an authentic document. So you'll have to get that for all your documents. I'm pretty sure even like university certificates and things like that, if you need those for immigration purposes or for work or something like that, it's just an important thing to know. Get them done ahead of time because it is such a pain to do any of that when you don't live in the US. So do that ahead of time. Start looking at places to live. Even if you're just going on and getting a feel for sizes and prices and what things look like, start looking ahead of time. So the main website we use here is Funda.nl. So it's Funda.nl, and you'll see the prices and everything. Now, if you are looking to rent, there are plenty of other websites. That's a whole different video, but you can just kind of get a feel for what to expect, because if you watch International House Hunters, which if you're moving abroad, I kind of feel like you probably do, there are so many people who are like, oh my gosh, it's like so small. And really, things are just different here. Also, if you don't know, those people are probably hamming it up for the camera a little bit, which is absolutely fine. But hopefully they're not all like, everything's American sized, because it just isn't. It's a very densely populated city. It's a very old city. There's social housing that is built a little differently, and you can live with a lot less than probably you're used to if you are used to, you know, standalone 2, 3, 4 bedroom houses. You'll be fine here. Here, you'll find people taking 2 to 3 kids on a bike to school. Come on, you can do it, I promise you. If possible, I would really suggest coming to visit before you move. So we were able to do this. We were very lucky to have the ability to do this the year before. And we actually stayed in Bossen-Lomer, which is in the west. And it's a very nice neighborhood, but we just didn't feel like it was right for us. And so we went around to some of the different neighborhoods and just kind of got a feel for the vibe, for the scenery, for the architecture, for what was on offer there. And so we had a better idea when we actually signed the lease where we wanted to be. And I think that's really important because where you live will have a big impact on how you feel about your new home. Home being the city. That doesn't just go for Amsterdam, that goes for really anywhere in the entire country. I know that a lot of people will relocate to some of the other bigger cities and maybe even the smaller towns. So it's just a really good idea to get a feel for it first if you have the financial ability to do so. Join expat groups online. Now I've talked about this a little bit in the how to make friends video, which I will, you guessed it, I'll link it down below for you. And I think doing the online thing ahead of time just lets you build a connection with people before you get here, and then once you're here, you can meet up with them and maybe you've already made some friends. I think networking is one of the most important things to do because having that connection with people will make things a lot easier, and you'll have people who can help you with everyday things. Like, I'm sorry, but it is so, like, not even thought of some of the things that you have to go through when you move somewhere that I could have never thought of. Like, where do I buy a vacuum? Like, that seems so simple because in the US, you know exactly where to go. Also, places in the US, they sell everything. But it's just that, those little things, it's nice to have a group or even a person to just message and be like, hey, where do I get this? And then you're not so frustrated like I have been in the past. Yes, these are definitely lessons learned from my life, so please take this free advice. Follow people on Instagram that live in the city that you're going to. Follow the restaurant and bars and really anything that you have interest in the city that you're moving to, because they'll show you more like what to expect when you're living here. And for some of the people, they might kind of show everyday life and, you know, not the sunshine and rainbows that everybody likes to talk about. Like today, it snowed this morning. We do not get snow in Amsterdam very often, like maybe once a year, and it's this light little dusting and then it goes away very quickly. And to be fair, it is already gone. But you know, those kinds of things you just probably wouldn't know about, or even the really cool things that nobody talks about, because if you're following travel bloggers, they're probably just here for a couple days, like max a week. So you just don't really get a full picture. So following these people, following the bars and restaurants, those will actually give you a connection for when you move. So not only, you know, can you make friends that way, so you're DMing and like, hey, I'm thinking of moving, what do you think about this? Or the restaurants, and you can start making a list of places so you're not so overwhelmed when you move, because it can very much feel like a vacation when you first move somewhere new. I definitely did that. But just having a starting place for things that you want to do or see, yeah, it just gets you in the right mindset, I think. Similarly, make a Google map, like where you save places, make that map so that you can refer to that once you move here, and again, you will have a place to start. Save money. I feel like that is such an obvious one, but save money. It's very possible that Amsterdam will be more expensive than you were expecting, depending on where you live in the United States. From Virginia, where we are from specifically, because Virginia can get very expensive, it was a lot more expensive, whereas our friends from San Francisco, not that big of a deal. So just kind of get a feel for the prices of things. There are plenty of websites that show costs of living, like costs of milk and bread and things like that, and even comparison sites. So definitely check those out so that you can get a feel for it, so that you'll be more comfortable knowing exactly how much money you need to have once you're here. This may or may not be relevant to you, but as a Virginian, I cannot deregister from my state, whereas my Texan friend could. So I don't know what this means for different people, but basically I didn't know what to do as far as like legal address is concerned. So our address is in Amsterdam for the IRS, for voting and things like that. To file taxes, I had to because I was a Virginian, specifically this is Virginia and I think a couple other states, so definitely check on this. As a Virginian, I still have to file state taxes. Most states do not do this, but Virginia doesn't let you go. So because of that, I had to have an address, and so I've used the family member's address. And that means that I can vote in local elections, I can vote in federal elections, and I contacted the registrar in that locality to make sure that they had my international address, which they did, and everything went very smoothly. But I highly, highly recommend that you double check on this, because a lot of places, I'm from a small town, a lot of places just are not used to international people, and you will definitely want to check on that stuff to make sure that it's all good. Because even when I did taxes, we had to do a partial year tax form when we left, and my locality just knew nothing about it. I had to call the state capital because they were so confused. They were like, you did it wrong. And then Richmond's like, no, you did it right. We made sure to, yeah. So check on all the legalities of all the addresses and stuff. Now, I wanna give you some questions to ask yourself so that you can get the most of your experience. You ready? Okay, I'm gonna use my notes. Is this a temporary or long-term move, or is it indefinite? This question will help you understand what you should do with your stuff. Like I said, we sold everything. We don't have anything in storage. I mean, my dad does have a closet of stuff, but that's all yearbooks and keepsakes and things like that. I know some people who have storage units and they just pay for it even though they don't think they're ever gonna move back. And with the same idea, don't move large electronics. Leave the KitchenAid, leave the Dyson, leave the refrigerator, the wash machine, all of it, because A, we have a different plug here, which you can get it replugged, I guess, but also we have a different voltage here. And honestly, a lot of that stuff is American size and doesn't really fit. So leave it all. Just leave it all back there. Yeah, just kind of plan on buying all those things new. And I know the sun keeps coming and going. I can see gray clouds coming, but then the sun pops out and then I'm like, hello. So hopefully the auto brightness is doing its job. What is your goal of moving abroad? Is it to try a new lifestyle? Is it to, I don't know, study? Is it to travel more? Yeah, I'm definitely looking at my notes. That will kind of help you understand also with the monetary side, how much you want to save, but also what your priorities are once you move here, because maybe you want to travel every weekend or every other weekend, or maybe you want to just stay in one place and just live. There's just so many different ways that you can have this experience, and thinking about that ahead of time will help you figure it all out, and once you move, set the motion for what you want to do. I hope that made sense. I feel like that was very long-winded. I'd love to know what kind of questions you have for me when it comes to, living abroad. And I didn't say this earlier, but I know I'm gonna get comments about it, and I have a feeling those people are not gonna wait till the end of the video. But I use expat, the term, because that is what YouTube likes, that is what people search for. But immigrant is also the word to use for what I am. I immigrated into the Netherlands, and I am totally fine with that. So I hope you are too, because to me, the words basically mean the same thing, and I hope you understand that it does not have a negative connotation for when you actually immigrate somewhere. Anyway, let me know what other questions you have, and I appreciate you so much. Subscribe if you aren't already. Please like the video if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys!